Stephanie Ruhle, and welcome to On the Money Today. Millions of Americans every year vow to get better and smarter with their New Year's resolutions. They want to eat healthier, exercise more, and lose a couple pounds. Those are all top resolutions we hear year after year, and it's great. It is great to want to improve your physical health, but I'm going to challenge you to think about a different kind of goal, your financial health. Just like you might cut out cookies and add more veggies to your diet, I want you to add more mindfulness to your spending and really reboot your savings habits. Today, we're going to start 2022 off right with my own personal money rules, the 3 most important financial resolutions to help you gain control of your money. First, if you want to save more, and who doesn't, you got to make a budget. And if you want to make a budget you can actually stick to, my money rule, track it. You need to track every single dollar you spend, just like you might track every calorie when you go on a diet. But before you can decide where your money problems are, you've got to track your money so you know where exactly your money is going. It's not hard to do. You can use an app. You can use a notebook. You can put it in the draft of an email. However you can actually get it done, do it. Get the information you need. My next money rule, pay down your debts. And I realize easier said than done, but in order to start paying down your debts, you got to have a plan. Getting started with that plan is hard, but you need to know exactly what you owe. Go over every single one of your bills. Pull them out of the closet, out of that shoebox. Figure out your bills, all of your loans, how much you owe to each lender, and most importantly, what the interest rate is on every single bit of that. That's going to help you figure out a game plan and help you save on those torturous fees that none of us like paying. And my last one, how are we going to spend less? And I don't mean fewer dollars. I mean spending less on the stuff that doesn't actually matter. All of us are guilty of spending when we're tired, when we need a mood boost, any number of reasons, impulse buying, emotional spending. This is the year we're going to stop that. I want to challenge you to spend more mindfully, shop smart, and really give each dollar a purpose. And you're in luck. I have gathered a team of superstar experts to help you make a plan for each one of these resolutions. And I want to start with someone extra special. Ashley Feinstein-Gersley. She's the author of Financial Adulting. She is here to help us create a budget. Ashley, we need this help because it's easy to say, oh, make a budget, but nobody does it. Because creating a budget is a lot like doing a chore, and nobody likes a chore. I know you have an inspiring way to do this. A lot of people are going, there's no such a thing. There's no inspirational budget, but you've got one, so walk us through it.
You're 100% right. Budgets need a reframe, and that's why I call budgets happiness allocations. I think it's a much better way to describe them because they're just a plan for how we're going to strategically allocate our money in the way that's going to make us the happiest.
I agree with you. If you're going to have a beautiful home, you need a great foundation. You need the best architect, and that's you. So for those who have never done it, how do you go about creating a budget? Is there a certain equation we should use?
So we start with the budgeting equation, which is our income, the amount that hits our bank account, and we subtract our expenses and our goals. And then we have what's left over. And if what's left over is positive, then that's great. Our budget is working. But if we take our income minus our expenses and our goals and it's negative, then our budget's not currently workable or our income is not able to cover our expenses and goals.
Here's one of the issues. A lot of times we don't include lots of our spending in a budget. And then at the end of the month, we've got a huge credit card bill or we have no money left and we can't figure out how that happened because when we created that budget, we only had our insurance, our rent, our car payments, and it didn't include all the other stuff we spend on.
Definitely. And I think it's really easy to leave things in our budget. I almost view it as a living document. We're always going to be updating it. We'll have lifestyle changes, but we tend to leave out the little things and those can add up, especially if they're happening in a bunch of different categories and over months. And we also have this optimistic tendency to round down. And it could be rounding down to the dollar, rounding down to the $10, or just estimating. So as exact as we can be with our budget, by looking back on the last 12 months of what we've been spending, strategically thinking about what's happening different this year, the more our budget will reflect reality.
Okay, that's the framework. Take us to the emotion. Let's say we have created the budget, but something that's really hard to do is sticking to it. Whether it's going out for a meal, getting a coffee, buying new clothes, those things aren't in our budget and we can often bust that budget. So do you have any tips to sticking to it?
Yes, sticking to it is so important because it's actually the key to budgeting success. So first, let's keep it realistic, even though it will be optimistic. If we are cutting things out cold turkey or drastically cutting our expenses, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So we want to make realistic changes. We want to keep it simple. If it's too complicated, it's going to be tedious and too much work to keep it up. We also want to create time to actually sit down and work on our budget. And I call this time a money party, which budgeting gets a reframe. So do our money meetings. Get cozy, put on some music, have your favorite beverage, and spend some time budgeting. And then I'd say the last tip I have, and probably the most important tip, is to be kind to ourselves. As financial adults, we're always learning and growing. We're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. So we just want to be kind to ourselves as we're growing and learn from those mistakes.
Realistic, optimistic, and kind. If that's not a great way to start the year, I don't know what is. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for these tips. I know I certainly need them. Coming up, if you are paying down debt on credit cards or student loans, you don't want to go anywhere. This segment is for you. You're going to need this one. Stay with us. Hey there, I'm Stephanie Ruhle, and welcome back to On the Money. We're taking a look at our top 3 financial resolutions for 2022. Number 2 on our list, paying down debt. Tackling debt can be so daunting, but Danielle Villalobos and her husband are proof that hard work and dedication can pay off.
My name is Danielle Villalobos. I live in Denver, Colorado with my husband and our 2 dogs, and we are in the process of paying off over $100,000 in debt. We had student loans, medical debt, credit card debt, our 2 cars, and our mortgage. We were stressed out about money all the time. Debt is really sneaky. We didn't know that you have to pay more than the minimum in order to pay it off. In July of 2018, my husband's best friend passed away. He was the best man at our wedding and was the greatest human. And 3 days after his funeral, I lost my job. That caused us to take serious pause. That same week, I jumped on a call with an old friend of mine, and she asked me the most important question I think anyone has ever asked me, and it was, where do you want to be in 5 years? You're at this rock bottom, where do you want to be? And my husband and I talked about it. We decided where we wanted to be, and we said, how are we going to get there? And the first thing that we had to do was get our finances. I read all the money books just to try and figure out where we even started. I had to track all the money that was going on. And I did that for 3 months until we could figure out what our budget could actually be without us completely cutting everything out. The biggest challenge is just to stick with it. It gets really hard because there were a lot of times, a lot of things we wanted to do that we had to say no to. And it's been very worth it. We've gotten it down to about $40,000. Right now, our goal is to finish 2022 completely debt-free and have our investments ready to go going into 2023. When I think about where we were when we started and where we are now, I feel really excited. I was 18 when I got my first student loan, and 18 years later, I'll pay it off. I've had debt as long as I haven't had debt, and I'm excited to see the person that I am without it.
Debt-free by 2023 is awesome, Danielle, but I want to get realistic because a lot of people are watching saying, great, she did it. I have no idea how I'm going to, so I want to bring in an expert money coach, Lynette Califani-Cox. She's here with some tips on how you can start to own your debt-free journey. Lynette, you know, a lot of times people say, oh, great, here's an expert. What do they know?
Right.
But you've been in this position. At one point, you were $100,000 in credit card debt. How did you get there and how did you get out?
I got into there by classic overspending. Just when I saw something, if I wanted it, I just went out and bought it and didn't give regard to how I was going to pay it off. Ultimately, I had to tally up everything and take a good hard look in the mirror and see what I owed. And then I started to chip away at the debt. So I did so many things to get out of the debt, not the least of which was recognizing that minimum payments were a trap. So I started doubling and tripling my payments because I now know that minimum payments in the short run mean long payments in the long run, a lot of interest. And then I did other things too. I put windfalls, income tax refund checks, bonuses from the job, socked everything towards the debt.
Okay, so today we're going to focus on credit card debt and student loan debt. I want to start with credit card debt.
Yes.
You say the first step is simply knowing what you owe. In theory, we all know what we owe, but we don't. We spend, but we don't actually look at those bills.
We really don't know. One thing I've learned as a money coach over the past 18 years is that most people guesstimate. They put their bills in the shoebox or in the drawer. They don't really check it out. You have to pull out every single one and know exactly how much debt you owe. You should know the interest rate. You should know the amount of the dollar balances. You should know the minimum payments required. And you should really have a plan about how am I going to tackle this stuff? Because if you don't, you'll be mired in debt month after month, year after year.
People often think, hey, this credit card is available to me. That must mean I can afford it. But that's not the case.
No.
And standard practice is, well, you got all your bills, start paying off whatever is the highest interest rate. That's what I always thought to do.
Right.
Is that not the case?
I don't believe that that's always the best strategy, frankly. I know this is counterintuitive wisdom here.
Yeah, I get, because let me tell you something. I hate paying high interest rates. I hate paying fees.
I understand that. And if you have those high fees, you should definitely try to negotiate, which is one of my strategies. You can negotiate for a whole bunch of things. You can negotiate for partial payments, to extend your payment date, to change your payment date, to have a late payment on your credit report updated. Obviously, you can negotiate, and most people don't do that.
Okay, but you cannot negotiate if you don't know what you owe.
Right.
If all those bills are sitting in the back of your closet, then you are not on the phone with your loan officer creating a plan.
And asking for that lower rate. But here's the thing. If you don't worry about interest rates, because like me, when I had $100,000 in credit card debt, I actually had very low interest rates. So I was more bothered by high dollar balances. So for those folks who are maxed out and their credit cards are at their limits, you might be better served by going after the cards with the highest dollar balance first and attacking those, reducing those dollar balances so you won't be so close to the edge.
Here's a problem I'm worried about. We've had a freeze because of COVID accommodations on student loan payments.
Yes.
And in theory, we should have been trying to save up, knowing we were going to have to start paying. But a lot of us didn't do that.
Right.
What do we need to know? How do we need to prepare? Because those bills are coming.
You definitely need to also know what you owe. You need to make sure that you understand, do I have federal loans? Do I have private loans? And then you need to understand what are the payment or repayment options available to you. Generally speaking, on the federal student loan repayment front, there's kind of like three main categories. There's the standard loan repayment program where you pay them off in 10 years. There's a graduated or extended loan repayment options. They might take you out to 20 or 25 years. And then there's a variety of income-based or income-sensitive loan repayment options. So you need to find the program that best fits your situation.
Last thing, I want you to give us some tips on understanding how credit works, right? So lots of people say, oh, I'm going to buy this cruise because, you know, they're having a discount on it. I'm going to buy these boots because they're on sale. But if you're only making minimum payments and if you've got high interest, those boots ain't on sale. You're end up paying 2-3 times retail. We don't realize that. Can you help us understand why knowing credit is important?
Well, credit and debt are actually two opposite sides of the same coin, especially with your credit card debt, because the more credit card debt you're carrying, the more that tends to drag down your FICO credit score.
Thank you.
30% of your FICO credit score is based on the amount of debt that you have outstanding. And also, if you want to take that cruise or go shopping or whatever, if you take out new forms of credit, that's an inquiry that gets generated on your credit report, stays on there for 2 years, counts against you for the purpose of your FICO score for 12 months. Again, that lowers your credit rating as well. So you have to be mindful of your credit and spending, especially your credit card usage behaviors that can drag down your credit score.
Just because you can swipe doesn't mean you should. It is a trap. Be aware of it. Thank you so much. These are such important tips. We need them, especially going into a big new year. Annette Califani-Cox, you made us definitely a whole lot better and smarter. Coming up next, how to shop smart and spend less on everyday essentials from gas to groceries and more. And later in the show, is 2022 your year to start investing? We'll show you the best online tools to get in on the action right after the break. Hey there, welcome back to On the Money. I'm Stephanie Ruhle, and there is no time like the present to make financial resolutions for the new year. We've made our budget, We've made a plan for paying down debt. Now it's time to take a look at how we can cut everyday spending. Here to help, NerdWallet finance expert Kimberly Palmer. Kim, you say there are two things we should wait to buy, electronics and clothing. I'll give it to you. I have a closet full of almost the identical dress, so I can wait on clothing. But why electronics?
Well, electronics is really tough right now because we're still seeing a lot of supply chain issues. And what that means is that there just isn't the inventory for retailers to offer the kind of discounts that we're used to seeing. So it really is best to wait if you do have that flexibility for things like TVs, video game consoles, computers. But if you absolutely cannot wait and you need to buy now, there are still ways to find discounts. You just have to work a little harder and put a little more effort in.
I get that dollar stores are a great solution for things like toys for kids, wrapping paper, stationery, paper goods. But then you've got groceries and gas. Gas is one that I've never known how you can save on gas. It is what it is.
Gas is a tough one. The first question to ask yourself is if you can possibly drive less right now. So for example, maybe you can start carpooling. Maybe you can even take heavy things out of your trunk. That can actually really help stretch each gallon of gas. And then also gas prices vary so much even within a neighborhood. So if you can, you want to use an app like Gas Buddy to make sure you're going to the gas station that will give you the best price possible. Another option, if you're someone that pays off your credit card balance every month, consider using something like a gas rewards card because then you can earn cash back. Another way to help stretch your budget.
We know that almost everything at the grocery store has gotten a lot more expensive, but are there certain items that have been impacted the most by supply chain issues and shortages? Because those are the things that maybe we can avoid.
Grocery prices really have gone up across the board, but there are some categories that have just really spiked. So for example, packaged snacks are very steep right now. So are bakery products, cereals. One thing we recommend at NerdWallet is to make sure you're layering discounts on top of each other. So for example, at your local grocery store, maybe you can opt into the loyalty program to get discounts. Then on top of that, you could use a grocery rewards card to get extra cash back. It's a way of stretching your budget because prices are just so high.
Okay, those packaged snacks, that's exactly where we're seeing shrinkflation. It's a huge topic among consumers. A lot of people haven't heard the word, but we're experiencing it. I took a snack out for my daughter the other day. I thought it was for a Barbie doll. It was so small. Can you explain this to us and how we can avoid it?
Shrinkflation is such a challenge right now because it's so sneaky. Basically, you're paying the same price, but you're getting less. And sometimes it's hard to even notice. So in really subtle ways, basically retailers, manufacturers have made it smaller what you're actually opening up inside the package. You have to look so carefully at how it's labeled. And also it's harder to compare prices too. So you want to be really careful about looking at that per unit price when you're making comparisons and deciding what to buy.
So is the answer get away from packaged goods, try to buy bulk and separate it yourself?
I mean, that is a great strategy, but I'm a mom of three, and I know how hard it is because it means you have to put more effort in. It's so easy to grab those packaged snacks for kids' lunches, but it can definitely save you money. But again, you have to put that extra work in.
Teeny tiny packaging, big prices. We see you manufacturers, and we're not buying it. Kimberly, thank you for joining us. Thank you for these tips. And a lot of people in the last year have actually said, hold on a second, I've saved. During COVID, they weren't spending, going out. Disposable income actually increased. Household savings went up. And a lot more people have said, maybe it's time for me to invest in the stock market. It's a goal for 2022. And it's obvious why. 2021 was a year of all-time highs. But I want you to remember, investing is not a reason to simply get excited because you're having fear of missing out. Right now, there are lots and lots of online options that are making it easier for people to get in on the action. But what's really important is to understand what you're investing in and why. So let's bring in editor-in-chief of Investopedia, Caleb Silver. He's here with some advice on how to get started. Caleb, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Over the last year, so much fear of missing out. We have seen the stock market hit record highs, especially just think about the last 5 or 10 years. People are watching the markets saying, I want to get in. And now there are so many technological advances that make it easier to invest. But how should we start thinking about it?
Well, great to be with you. And it's never been easier to invest. That doesn't mean it's easy to invest.
Bingo.
Right?
Yes.
Technology has made it much easier. The platforms are much easier to use. There's no fees for trading stocks anymore. All kinds of products you can buy as an investor. But you got to do your homework, and you have to decide what kind of an investor you want to be. If you have that discretionary income, are you going to be an investor for the long term and try to build wealth? Or are you going to try to get in there and trade the market and try to make money quickly? That's much harder to do, and many people fail at that. But investing for the long term is the path to building wealth.
Okay, but that's where I want you to go, because people say, hey, I've got some extra money, let me invest it. Can you help us understand how important time horizon is? Because just because you've got a few $1,000 extra doesn't mean you should invest it, especially if you need that money a year from now.
Yeah, if you need that money within a year, the stock market's probably not the best place for that to be.
Robo-advisors are an option. Can you explain that to us?
Sure. Robo-advisors are digital asset managers, and basically they do the work for you of picking the mutual funds or the securities. You put in your goals, you put in your age, you put in your income and your assets, and they help you develop a plan. Set it and forget it. That's for the hands-off investor that just wants to have that money work for them over time. But there are other options if you don't want that. If you want much more hands-on, you want to make the decisions yourself, do your own research, then maybe you want to consider an online broker. But there's so many options for new investors to get into the market cheaply, efficiently, and then be able to manage their risk over time.
Talk about the fees, though. For those who say, I don't have an MBA, I don't have any investing experience, but I can't afford one of those expensive managers, help us understand how the fee structure works. Because when you mentioned before, no-fee brokers, people are like, oh, my gosh, this is free. It's so easy. None of it is so easy.
No, when it's free, you're the customer. But it is easy to sign up for an account. You don't have account minimums anymore. You don't have fees for trading. You can add $10 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month. You can start very small and build over time with some of these platforms, and it's easy. You can do it on your mobile phone. You can do it on your desktop. You can work through an actual person if you want an advisor to help you with some of these brokers. But the technology is easier, and the fees are lower, and the access for individual investors has never been better. You just have to do your homework and then think of it as a marathon. This is not something you put in the market and it grows magically. You have to keep adding to it, and you have to keep your eye on it.
So my last question, whether it's $100, $1,000, the money we put in the markets, should that be money we can afford to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. But you should also expect that over time, it's going to grow. The stock market returns on average somewhere between 6 and 8% a year for the last 60 or 70 years. That may change year to year, but in general, that trend is higher. And the stock market has been a great place to build wealth back in the day and today.
Over time, that's what's key. If you need to make that money tomorrow, go to Vegas. That's at least more fun. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Coming up next, are you up for a challenge? We're launching a new On the Money community to help you reach your financial goals this year. More on that and a look at the headlines impacting your wallet right after this. Welcome back to On the Money. For many resolutions, it's really helpful to have an accountability buddy. I know I'm way more likely to go to the gym or eat well when there's somebody doing it with me. And that is what we plan to do this month, together. I want you to track your spending alongside the rest of us in the Today community. At today.com/onthemoney, you're going to find a downloadable spending tracker. And each week, you're going to fill it out. You can do it every time you make a purchase, once a day, every week, whatever works for you. Post your wins. I have got your back, and we are all in this together. And I'm going to be doing a check-in on Instagram in a couple weeks to see how you're doing, and I'm going to tell you how I'm doing. And now let's take a look at the state of the economy as we kick off a new year. The American economy, while it's divided, is in a much better place than we thought we'd be a year ago this time. But that is not to say everything is perfect. Last month, inflation rose by 6.8% from the prior year. That's the biggest jump we've seen since 1982, and 0.8% from October to November. That's the steepest hike we've seen in energy. We're seeing the price of used cars and trucks are still really high. Another spot that is not easing up, food. As supply chain issues continue to slow down markets, you're likely going to keep feeling it at the grocery store. But there is a bright spot, a very bright spot, the job market. It might not be ideal for employers, but guess what? For us, unemployment and initial jobless claims have dropped in the past few months, and job growth is getting higher and higher. 5.8 million jobs were added between November 2020 and November 2021, though it's still nearly 4 million short of pre-pandemic levels. So we are on the path to economic recovery, but it's not a straight line. Thank you for joining me for another edition of On the Money. I am Stephanie Ruhle, and let's start this new year off right together. Let's get financially fit.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.